don't have to go around to find. There are successful cases. Let's get on to it, and there should be a strong political will headed by the President, Prime Minister, so that it can happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Gentlemen, just in the second row back, two in, just where you are now. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Abebe Gellaw. I'm from Ethiopia. My question is directed to Prime Minister Zenawi, because I'm from Ethiopia. Wherever I go, I face difficult questions. People ask me questions about Ethiopia. One of which happens to be, why is Ethiopia starving? It's a very difficult question, obviously, to answer for me. As Prime Minister, I would like to ask you the same question. Why is Ethiopia starving? While it is a country which is called the water tower of Africa. We have a huge water resources, unutilized land. Now we are giving away our land to Saudi Arabia to grow food for their own consumption. So I think I agree with you, as you said, that policy is the biggest constraint, and I believe it is the biggest constraint. If we take Ethiopia, land is still owned by the ruling party. This makes Ethiopia one of the fewest countries in the world where government controls land. Don't you think that it's high time for Ethiopia to privatize land? Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to go on accepting several more comments or questions because it's fairer to our panelists to receive a number. And we have three people down here who would like to speak. I've noticed, and then we have a lady in the middle wearing the beautiful gold. So perhaps one of you just sir, on the right there, you've got a microphone there? Yes, sir, you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Point to the issue which was specifically directed to me. Why is Ethiopia starving? And it's a dilemma. I agree with the person who asked the question. Because in 1975 there was a massive famine in Ethiopia, and the regime led by Emperor Haile Selassie collapsed. May its soul rest in peace. In 1984-85, there was another huge famine. And a few years later, another regime of the Mengistu military dictatorship collapsed. Again, may its soul rest in peace. I understand it's somewhere in Zimbabwe. Now, after such horrendous experience, why are we facing similar food shortages? And there's another irony. Ethiopian agriculture has been growing at between 6 and 7% per year for more than a decade. That is why Yara, for example, recognized Ethiopia even before it recognized Malawi in 2005. Ethiopia was recognized for its success in agricultural development. So if agriculture is developing in Ethiopia, if agricultural production is developing, doubling every 10 years, why are we still hungry? That's a dilemma. Two explanations have been given. I don't agree with the first one, but I'll never say it. I agree with the second one. First argument has been that we have added some 30 million people to Ethiopia's population over the past 18 years. And so the increase in production, according to this theory, is being consumed by the increased mouths to feed. And as there are too many mouths to feed, there isn't enough food to go around. That is a very enticing theory, but a theory that I don't agree with. That doesn't mean we do not have to restrain ourselves when we procreate, but that is not a sufficient explanation. The reason that I think is the main reason is the difference between national agricultural growth and distribution of that agricultural growth amongst the population. You can have 10% growth per year of agriculture, and if it's not evenly distributed by way of income, you will still have millions who do not have the money to buy food or who do not grow the food themselves. Now, in the case of Ethiopia, we have been quite good at sharing our poverty and to some extent also sharing the improvement in our economic future. The Gini coefficient in Ethiopia is the lowest in Africa. And so our agricultural production has been broadly shared, with the exception of two areas. One, we have the highest population of pastoralists in Ethiopia, in Africa. And the pastoralists in our country have not benefited from the improvement in crop production. And they are the most vulnerable to weather variations. That has been one of our challenges. And institutional transformation in pastoralist areas takes a lot of time. And it's very expensive. The second specific area where we have our problems is the so-called degraded and drought-affected parts of our country, mostly in the north and east of our country. Now, here, no matter what we do to improve productivity, because as a matter of general occurrence, they are always short of rain, and because investment in the types of irrigation infrastructure that the President was talking about takes a bit more money than is available to us. These specific areas have not benefited as much as the rest of the country. And so, while our agricultural production, crop production has been doubling every decade, we still have pockets of extreme poverty and food insecurity. There is a minor difference between what we have now and what we had in 84, 85, or 75. In those years, food shortage meant famine, and famine meant mass deaths. Since then, there has not been mass deaths. Food shortage does not mean famine in Ethiopia anymore. Because even though these people do not have the resources to feed themselves, the government has been able to provide food assistance to keep them alive. And as a sort of a side effect of that, to keep itself alive as opposed to the previous two regimes. So, one last point, land policy. And here again, we are at the opposite end of Zimbabwe. In 1975, when the imperial system crumbled, we had the most radical land reform in Africa. The most radical, 1975. All land was nationalized. All land was nationalized and distributed to the tillers, the so-called land to the tiller slogan that some of you will remember from your student days. Now, in 1991, when we took over, we inherited the system. And we needed to reform it. We were given two options. The Bretton Woods institutions told us, privatize the land. Let the farmers sell and buy land as they wish. We were not as ambitious in the area of trust for markets as the Bretton Woods institutions. So we chose for a halfway system, whereby the farmers, the peasants, will not be able to sell or buy land, but they will have indefinite use right, which means they will use it so long as they are alive, and pass it on to their children, but they will not sell it. They will not be allowed to alienate it. They will be able to rent it. They will be able to pass it on to their children by way of inheritance, but they will never be allowed to buy and sell land. That means land security in Ethiopia is almost absolute. Every peasant in Ethiopia has guaranteed access to land, and even his children have guaranteed access to land. Land aggregation is not happening. The advantage we have in Ethiopia is while there is land shortage in the highlands, where 80% of the population live, there is abundant land, unutilized land in the lowland areas. So our policy is that in the lowland areas where we have abundant unused land, we would lease it out to private sector investors. In the highlands where there is land shortage, we would allow the farmers to retain indefinite use right. So you have one extreme in the highlands where land is not sold and bought and it's permanently owned by the farmers. And the other extreme that my compatriot was mentioning, where the government is leasing out hundreds of thousands of hectares to Saudi investors on long-term lease basis. It's not being sold because land in Ethiopia cannot be bought and sold. It's being leased out on a long-term basis. Why? Because in the lowlands we have a lot of unutilized land. In the highlands we have land shortage, and where we have the land shortage, we divide, we share our poverty equally.
Thank you very much.
Now, that may not be the orthodox policy. My government has been very severely criticized by the Bretton Woods institutions, and even some of our good friends have not been very happy with it. But I'm very comfortable with it. And in any case, it has not stopped us from increasing our crop production, doubling our crop production every decade. I think that is quite acceptable for the moment.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr. President, would you want to say any last words as we come to...
Well, I'll be very brief because we are short of time. What I would say is that the issue is not lack of political will.